Good afternoon once again, and welcome into the Government Operations Committee meeting on the Senate side. And this is our final topic of the day. We have Legislative Counsel with us only for about a half an hour, so I will express my appreciation for him coming in. Yes, you can join us at the table for sure. And even though this was labeled as the review, I guess is the verb or the adverb, the noun I used, of Act 57, it came about only from a non-constituent who wrote me about a piece of this, not the whole bill. So I'm not feeling any necessity to open the whole thing up again. I do have some specific pointed questions to ask, but I'll just defer to Tucker, who I think I've shared some of those questions with, and just set the stage if you can. We're going to have folks come in from VLCT. I don't see anybody else on the screen yet.
I'm right here. Shoots.
Yeah, but I think there's three other people that are. No. Okay. Yeah. Well,
there's Katie. That's Katie.
There's Katie Buckley.
Katie and Marguerite. Yeah, they're my colleagues. Yeah.
Are they going to testify or just listen? Do you know?
I'll testify and they'll be available as the content specialist if needed.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So, welcome in, Tucker.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Tucker Anderson, Legislative Counsel. It's the first time this session, the first time with a new face to the committee. So, just to
You've met
you.
No.
So, I'm Legislative Counsel, working primarily in government operations issues and devices, and you'll likely see a lot of this session. And one of the areas that I work in specifically is municipal government. And as of last year, dabbling in emergency management. And today we'll talk a little bit about the intersection of those two issues in Act 57. Mm-hmm. And with the chair's direction and permission, we'll talk specifically about Section 6 of that act, which I believe is where some of the questions you received were based.
That's exactly where they were.
So Section 6 added a new section to Title 24, or you could say Section 1585, and allowed for the establishment of an unassigned fund balance at the local level and the transfer of certain funds at the end of the fiscal year. So I'll walk you through the language. It's very brief in this section. And then if you have any questions for me afterwards, happy to answer them. So this section allowed monies from a budget approved by the voters. I'll pause. Mechanism for approval of budgets at the local level is annual meeting. Voters approve the budget. Then the legislative body sets a tax rate to fund the budget. Okay, so the budget has been approved. Many cases, there are items in the budget that are dedicated for specific purposes at that time. Okay, so monies that are approved through that process that are not expended by the end of the municipality's fiscal year shall be under the control and direction of the legislative body of the municipality. So once you've come to the end of the fiscal year, you have unexpended funds from the budget. They're under the control of the legislative body.
And this is just because this is what I think both Senator Clarkson and I were saying last time, is our understanding was the unassigned fund balance isn't just like they can do whatever they want with it. With internal, like the town manager can't do whatever they want with it. It still has to go through the select board for a vote.
Right.
Okay.
Under the control and direction of the legislative body, as a consensus building body, has to take a vote in order to take action.
Right. And we delegate our vote. I mean, that's why we elect people to that municipal body to make decisions on our behalf. And we have voted money. And then if that money isn't expended, the understanding was that the thoughtful select boards the elect would thoughtfully reassign it to something else that the town needed.
Okay, let's let Tucker finish.
The section, this sentence, not just the section, this sentence goes on. That further, those monies can be carried forward from year to year as an unassigned fund balance. So can continue to hold this through the years and add to it if necessary. Unassigned fund balances may be invested and reinvested, as are other monies by the local treasurer, and may be expended for any public purpose as established by the legislative body of the municipality. So once you've come to the end of the fiscal year, even if there was a specific purpose for an item in the budget, if there are unexpended funds at the end of the fiscal year, those funds go under the control of the legislative body, can be carried forward year to year, may be invested or reinvested, and ultimately may be expended for any public purpose. And this is the law, and the current state of the law.
Who is having a problem with that?
Well, that's not a question for Tucker.
I wasn't asking.
Oh, okay. I explained, I thought when we began again, I received an email from somebody in Reedsboro. And I called him back and we had a long conversation about this. He has specific questions. We keep talking about the legislative body, so that's where it's all going to be focused on, my questions, but he's not a constituent, he's out of my district, but I felt.
You're chair of the committee of
And he
jurisdiction.
made, what I thought were some good points and some good questions, so I thought, okay, well, I'll take it up again and see what, because maybe this all came out of H 397, which turned into Act 57. And this was only one section of the bill. And I thought maybe, and maybe I'm right, maybe I'm not right, we didn't take a fine enough look at it, getting really granular about this, that maybe we put something through that upon further reflection, we want to go, not sure that's what we wanted to do kind of thing. I'm not saying that's what happened, please understand. But again, I thought he deserved, and I asked him to come and present, but it just wasn't possible to do. So I'm taking the burden from him and trying my best to, so that's where it came from.
Yeah.
Yes, Senator White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for clarifying. I think it's actually great when we have constituents, whether they're ours or others, if they have specific issues that they're worried about, that they come to the chair of jurisdiction. Yeah, I think when you had originally described it, I was under the impression that we had basically given carte blanche to the town manager, the non-legislative body, in the way that your constituent had framed it up. So that, I just want to say that I am very comfortable with that language. I had misunderstood your constituent's concern, that if it was just like the unassigned fund balance could be moved without a motion or a vote by the select board or alder board, that would be a concern to me. And it sounds like that's not what is happening.
The legislative body, the municipality has to take a vote to carry the funds forward and ultimately to expend those funds.
Yeah.
As well.
So there's accountability for it. There's public discussion about it. There's a vote on it. I feel comfortable as well. Yeah.
So I don't know whether you feel comfortable answering the questions he directed to me to ask, or whether we can involve folks from the VLCT. Either way, if you feel the least bit uncomfortable, please let me know and I will let them answer.
It's a dangerous offer for someone who's not. But no, I'm comfortable answering the questions that I can and will of course defer to the experts in the room.
And I did understand, as you pointed out in section 6, what it was that we authorized. His focus is more directed to the legislative body. So, question 1, can the legislative body add UAF unexpended account funds to an existing reserve fund without voter approval?
Interesting question. Depends on the rules of the fund that have been established. And you may want to take further testimony from those in the room from VLCT who might have more information about how some of those funds are established. But one example that I would give you is enterprise funds have strict rules about what money can be deposited into them and what purposes those funds can
Right.
be assigned to. Additionally, there may be issues with bonding around moving funds between assigned funds at the local level. So it might be a more nuanced discussion than first glance. But
Okay. In a similar vein, can the legislative body transfer money in between unexpected or unexpended account funds and reserves without voter approval? In other words, going all the way back down to a townwide vote.
same answer as before.
Okay.
And when we get to the questions about voter approval, I will say that depending on the type of fund we're talking about, whether it is tied to a form of indebtedness, is going to matter a great deal because there are specific procedures for gaining voter approval from origin all the way through the maintenance of some of those instruments.
Okay. This one is similar, but I think it's a little bit different. If a previously established reserve fund has an intended purpose, and that reserve is short on funds for that purpose, can that legislative body unilaterally supplement that reserve fund with UAF funds without voter approval?
Same answer as the last
Yeah,
two, but I will
okay.
say that there were materials from just last session when this was being taken up that VLCT presented about some instances where that's what unassigned fund balances are used for. Maybe not specifically for shortages in reserve funds, but shortages in other dedicated funds in a municipality.
And lastly, does the municipality have to have an electorate approved policy on file? I think you already answered this. To govern the UAF that includes how much there is to have in it and just what it can be used or cannot be used for. You seem to indicate that each fund would be set up with kind of guardrails.
I will say the answer to your question is that within the four corners of this act, no, the voters would not have to approve that. It's
Okay.
under the control of the legislative body. And I'm not immediately aware, trying to go through the Tucker encyclopedia in my mind of something I've read in Title 24 that would be binding in that way, particularly if we're talking about
Okay.
policy. Are those the questions?
Yes, that's it.
The one thing that I wanted to bring you back to, and it sounds like you've thought about this, last session I pointed it out, I hope I did my due diligence and pointed it out here, is that this mechanism puts downward pressure on the voters at the time the budget is approved. That's the
Yeah.
largest shift from a legal perspective here, right? The voters still have an opportunity to approve these monies, and eventually, knowing now that this is in law, that they could be put in an unassigned fund balance to review the budget proposed and ultimately determine. This is an example we talked about. This seems to be too much for the town highway department's new truck. Where could these funds go in the future?
Yeah, or the bid comes in lower. I mean, there are just so many ways there might be these funds.
So does any other committee member have a question for Tucker? Because again, I'd love to send him on his way, perhaps a little bit early. And I mean, early in the sense that I had till 3 reserved in my mind view. And we appreciate your taking time out. I had a great meeting with Tucker this morning, with some of the other chairs, and Allison was there as well, of course. And I think things will proceed even better than they had been.
Yeah.
Because you're busy.
Continue excellent service and improved cooperation
Yeah.
between legislative council and.
Well, and I think both Brian and I really appreciate, I'm not sure until last year when we had supervisor roles within the ledge council, I don't think I've ever been called into a meeting like that. So that was
No.
really great. It's terrific. This was a meeting with chairs in the area group that Tucker supervises. On how we can coordinate better, how we could be more efficient together, how we can train better. It was just all terrific.
How to
That's
get the
right.
most out of legislative council service.
Yes.
Yep.
That too.
All right. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
So without casting aspersions on this fellow from Reedsboro, it appeared to me, and you could join us at the table if you want, that I probably am going to get into trouble even by going this far. It just seemed like all of the questions were about the legislative body, as though there was something bothering this person about, okay, this is what this thing was supposed to be for. This is what we approved money-wise. There's money left over. Can they just sort of separately, hey, let's have a quick meeting and we're going to do something else with the money today. And as long as that legislative body approved it, it would appear that it would be working. So.
Okay,
I wonder, and this makes me want to bring Tucker and his encyclopedic memory back, but I feel like there are some parameters on things legislative bodies must have public hearings around, and I've imagined.
No, there is.
monetary stuff.
Yeah, there is. Okay,
So I don't know that they could just do it in the corner.
Yeah, let's just go on the trip to Bahamas.
so for the record,
For the record, my name is Samantha Sheehan, the Municipal Policy and Advocacy Specialist for the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. As a reminder, we represent all 251 municipalities in the state, or cities and towns in the state, even more villages. And every municipal official in Vermont town government is a member, so appointed, elected, and professional employees. I will ask now, Katie and Marguerite, will you introduce yourselves each for the record with your name and title?
Sure, I can lead off. I am Katie Buckley. I am Director of the Municipal Operations Support Team at Vermont League of Cities and Towns.
For the record, my name is Marguerite Ladd, and I am the Government Finance Specialist at Vermont League of Cities and Towns.
okay, welcome.
And they're the two best phone friends you could ever have in attempting to explain the powers and authorities of an unassigned fund balance. And I really appreciate being here. Last year, the flood bill carried actually 5 of the league's biggest priorities. Certainly, we were here many times to talk to you about it. And it was a packed bill, and I agree, we didn't have a lot of time to get into the details and nuances of unassigned fund balance authorities. I'm happy to do that now, because it's a really useful and powerful tool for Vermont municipalities that helps protect Vermont taxpayers and residents from ever rising property taxes and control the public cost of borrowing and debt. And it helps ensure that in times of crisis and economic downturn, that the public services municipalities provide can continue. So I just need to be allowed to share my screen.
We got this by email as well.
Cool. Okay, Josh is here.
And Allison has.
Okay, so we discussed this. I'll skip this. Act 57, flood bill, had these 3 sections. Section 6 is the one we're discussing today.
Yep.
So I think it would be helpful if I start with some definitions.
Yep.
So when we talk about fund balances, this is not like a checking account or appropriation. An appropriation is an authority to expend. A fund balance is simply the difference between the assets and liabilities of a town. Some municipalities have relatively simple balances and others have very complex balances, right? But when we're discussing a fund balance, there's actually a 5th type, which is called unspendable, but that doesn't come up as much. So these are the 4 major fund types that we use in all governmental finance, all cities and towns, and all states. So the first is restricted. These are revenues, resources, monies that can only be used for a specific purpose that is dictated by an external party, such as a grantor or a law. So for example, TIF revenue is a restricted fund. State law restricts how TIF money can be spent or not spent.
Yeah.
Committed resources are very similar to restricted, but it's basically an action of the municipality that has restricted those funds, not an external party. So if a select board passes an ordinance which creates a housing trust fund and says in the future, rental registration fee money will go into a housing trust fund, then those are restricted funds created by the municipality that go into the housing trust fund. And to undo that, you would need the same legal action by the legislative body. So you would need to change the ordinance through a resolution. Assigned funds are basically intended for a purpose, but not restricted by some law, local or state or federal. So for example, super common, lots of towns have parades. They charge a registration fee to get your float in. But before the parade happens next 4th of July, they still have to get porta potties. They need to have the sheriffs there to manage traffic control and public safety. And they need to rent trash cans or whatever they need to do for the parade. So they're going to use last year's revenues from the prior year fiscal budget for next year's parade. Those are assigned, but they could legally be moved around. They're not restricted by a law. And then the last category is unassigned funds. So these are just not encumbered by these 3 other common circumstances.
Yeah, Senator Wong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How about capital reserve funds that was voted on by the voters?
So depending on how the reserve was created, it would probably most commonly be a committed fund.
Okay.
And same thing, it would need the same type of action to uncommit.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
because every year it comes up
Yeah,
on the warning, X amount of dollars for this, whatever.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So committed.
yeah.
Yeah.
There are reserve funds that could be created by the legislative body.
No,
And-
this.
Yeah, so it just sort of depends on how it was created.
Okay.
How
Thank
it's, yeah. So in governmental finance, there's a fund balance, which includes all of these fund types, and the 5th kind, which is called non-expendable. And this is just simply the balance between the assets and the liabilities. In the private sector, that not in government, this would be called working capital, right? This is like your debts and your ongoing expenses and expenditures are subtracted from the money that you have on hand and are expected to receive. That's your working capital. So the fund balance for a municipality is the resources available to it to meet its obligations and planned appropriations. The fund balance is a really important tool that indicates the overall financial health of the municipality. A fund balance should never be 0. Like, it is not advised by the professional governmental finance organizations to maintain a 0 fund balance. And it's also a indication you're skating on really thin ice. Like, you may not be able to pay your employees, you may not be able to keep plows running, right? We should never be in that situation. Now, an unassigned fund balance is the balance of those funds which are not restricted, committed, assigned, or non-spent. So these are revenues that are generated other ways and are not otherwise restricted in their use by laws of the state, laws of the federal government, actions of the town government, or other agreements with external parties like grantors, or through regional agreements, municipal cooperation agreements, etc. So that's what an unassigned fund balance is. These are commonly used, have been commonly used in Vermont for a very long time by many municipalities and certainly around the country. So this is what this graph comes from our colleagues in New Hampshire. And this shows ideally sort of like what a healthy cash flow and fund balance looks like in a municipal fiscal cycle. And remember that in Vermont, our revenue authorities for municipalities are extremely limited. And primarily the revenue that a town takes in is from property taxes, which are paid quarterly. However, the expenses that the town is committed to through the appropriations process and according to the need of the public services it provides are not quarterly. They're every day, every week, every month. The town is having to spend money. So I put a little circle at the beginning and at the end so you can see in a healthy financial situation, the fund balance is exceeding the cash flow at the beginning of the fiscal year as well as at the end of the fiscal year, although they may dance a little bit in the middle when there are periods of time where expenses are much higher than revenues for a period. If you have a healthy fund balance, and in particular, a healthy unassigned fund balance, that can help the town avoid emergency debt and short-term debt, such as a very common one, tax anticipation note. So if the town knows it may be $10,000 short on its June expenses, it may take out a tax anticipation note of $50,000 so that it can clear its payroll for June. But it's of course paying interest on the $50,000, which is a cost to the taxpayers of the town. We want to avoid that by just having the money there. So I'm sorry, I can't read as well from there. So Act 57, as Tucker described, grants the municipal legislative body control over these unassigned funds. Select boards, however, are encouraged to adopt a formal fund policy, and a good fund policy that will be liked and graded well by auditors and CPAs and credit rating agencies and lenders would include these elements. So it would define a target balance level. VLCT recommends for Vermont municipalities 15 to 17% of the general fund. And then it establishes conditions for use and replenishment. So it would describe if the fund falls below 15%, what actions should the select board consider to bring it back up to the target level. It identifies corrective actions and it addresses the treatment of excess funds. So same thing, if the target is 15 to 17 and we're now at 20% level of the general fund, what steps should the select board consider to bring it back down? Are there priority appropriations? Do we most want to resolve open debt? Do we most want to lower property taxes on the next year? Do we most want to maybe move that into a reserve fund? Like the question that Tucker got. And this is not a one and done. This is part of a healthy ongoing budgeting, auditing, and transparent governance of public money, right? So regularly this should be checked and discussed. And you may want to change your target level based off of your current municipal debt, your plans for the future. If you know you're going to have to build a high school, for example, and take out 190 million in bonds, you might want to, it's a good time to look at your unassigned fund balance policy and see if you should add or subtract to the target. So that's how an unassigned fund balance works. Why would we have it? Sounds complicated. Isn't it better to just spend money when you have it and raise it when you can? There are a lot of benefits to unassigned fund balances that many Vermont municipalities have used to great benefit for taxpayers. So it again supports a stable and predictable tax rate over time because the town knows that it doesn't need to take on short-term or emergency debt for regular operating expenses. And if an emergency happens, such as a terrible ice storm and we've blown our salt budget, or there's a flood and we have not received FEMA reimbursement, but have box culverts to rebuild, the town knows that those resources are available and it's not going to apply pressure to next year's tax rate. And then it provides flexibility for emergencies. I already said that. It ensures cash flow during constrained periods of revenue. So prior to quarterly tax collection, it reduces or eliminates the need for short-term borrowing. And this is honestly like the really big one, because municipalities in Vermont are increasingly going to bond for increasingly large sums of money. Like Burlington just had 200 million. South Burlington just had a big school bond 2 years before that. We know. I'm trying to think of one in your district, and I'm not coming up with one. But when a community is borrowing such a substantial amount of money, the difference in the interest rate is real dollars in the pocketbook of Vermonters, right? Like if all that a responsible legislative body, select board, city council can do, mayor, to raise the credit rating of the town and bring down that cost of interest, help save people money over the life of that debt. And then what's next? So, the unassigned fund balance authority created by Act 57 became effective in July. For towns not currently using this authority, this town meeting would be their first chance, right, to move over these unassigned funds, which are, again, like unplanned for revenues or savings, into next year's FY27 budget. So VLCT is soon to release a new model fund balance policy for a town that needs one. The model fund policy, like all policies of a town, would be acted on and adopted by a vote of the legislative body, so the select board or the city council. So just like their debt management policy, just like a policy that may dictate minimum or maximum amount of expenditures that need to actually go to the select board. Like some towns say a clerk can spend up to $1,000 or the select board needs to vote on it. Or the mayor may expend up to $50,000 or the select board needs to vote on it, right? That's a financial policy of the town that is acted on and created by an action of the legislative body. So anyway, we recommend having a policy, and we're going to put out a model policy shortly. And then just like every other day of the year, all members of VLCT may consult with our municipal operations support team with any questions, concerns, and for assistance in taking these public actions. I also somehow forgot like the most important point, which is any actions by the legislative body to create, maintain, or expend resources from an unassigned fund balance are subject to all normal laws. So open meeting law, public records law, it's also subject to any existing ordinance or policy of the town, such as if they have a debt management policy that may exist in relationship to the unassigned fund balance, and the rules of the body. So the select board or city council respectively, of course, operates according to rules, and may require a minimum vote, a minimum amount of time between a decision. They may have rules about whether or not new or old business can be taken up in a fiscal year, right? All of these rules are still in place in order to ensure transparency and good information and opportunity to engage with the public. And I will just show you this. This is in the PowerPoint. So in the PDF version, you can click on any of these for even more information or to share with any constituents or your town officials that have questions. And I'm going to stop screen sharing so we can see Marguerite and Katie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Samantha. Any questions from the committee on this? Yes, Senator Warren.
Wonderful job.
Yeah, really.
Ours is a bit more complicated. We have enterprise funds with
Yeah.
water, wastewater, electric utility, things of that nature.
Mhm.
One thing I just want to impress upon the committee really is that we get audited, and they'll break them up
Mhm.
into unassigned assets, and they show you the fund balances and whether most of the time we go up and all that stuff. And it gives you a real good idea of the strength. And they also, I asked for recommendations from the auditors. And so they told me they like a 2 to 3 to 1 ratio between current assets and current liabilities. So I'm paying them, so I might as well get something out of them, right? But that was really, really helpful. And I'll have to go through and look at some of the policies that you're taking a look at.
Yeah, all the gap auditors, so that's the type of audit you're discussing done by a certified or a CPA. They all recommend or in fact require unassigned fund balances. It's a way to communicate to the public in a more explicit way what funds are within the municipal.
I will say the majority of people don't fully understand the audit, reading the audits though, unless you have some background in that stuff. So,
Any other questions? Okay, well, it looks like you guys have an early afternoon, at least in this building. So thank you to both Marguerite and Katie and to Samantha.
Yeah.
And again, I need to say this at the end because if at any point there was a perception that we didn't think that you guys were kind of on the ball and doing the right thing and that we somehow erred last year, this was strictly a thing of, okay, give us clarity so we know that what we did was what we thought we did, kind of thing. So
Happy to do so.
yeah, Senator Clark.
Good have.
So I know we haven't had you in to focus on your priorities for the year, but we have begun to discuss our priorities, and I forgot a priority, which is the Ethics Commission. Ethics Commission is really such an orphan at the moment, and they need us, and I think that's a priority I want to bring back to the fore. But one of the priorities is expanding and maintaining a permanent flood resilient communities fund. And I assume you guys would support that as a priority and would be willing to chat about it with us.
The one for municipalities.
Flood resiliency is absolutely a priority of VLCT, and we're happy to learn more about
No,
the
it's
sort of
been
vision
in
there.
Act 57, same act.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Okay. And they're coming in next week to chat about that.
We're gonna go over next week in
Yeah.
just a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you be available next week?
Yep.
Or
Yeah. Yeah, I'll work it out with everything.
Or
Yeah.
Josh,
Yeah.
whoever wants to.
We already have, listen, so excited by the energy of the legislature is bringing to this session. But been a busy week. Next week's shaping up to be busy, but we'll sort it out and make sure we're here.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you very much.
We always entertain.
This one's got wheels on it for this session.
Before
Their
we just
second
had
year.
Yeah.
lead.
So let me go over quickly next week and then the rest of the committee can add out. Again, Tuesday, we have the Senate floor. And we also have mandatory training after the Senate floor. And then we're going to hear from the candidates for the Adjutant General with the combined House and Senate Government Operations Committee meeting in room 11 at 1. I've allowed 2 hours. I don't know if we're going to use all 2, but I don't really have anything else on deck for that day. So that's Tuesday. Wednesday, we're hoping that we're going to get Sarah Clark, the Agency of Administration Secretary, to come in for their priorities at 2. And then at 3, at S-164, which the other one was introduced
Yes,
today.
it's 229.
So I'm not sure the best way to handle that. Whether we take those up separately or whether we ask Senator Bihovsky and Senator Watson to noodle and figure out the best way to do that.
I'm happy to start there. I'm happy to connect with Senator Watson ahead of time
Okay.
and see if that works. I don't know. I haven't seen.
Well, I read the one that was introduced. It's quite a lot. There's a lot more to it than
Yes.
just this. And I don't know whether that would complicate passage or not, but
Well, also this is just health benefit as opposed to.
right. There's a bunch of other stuff included. Anyway, Jen Carving will be in. One of the things I learned today at the meeting with Tucker was if you're gonna do a walkthrough and you have a sponsor and you like to give the sponsor 5 or 10 minutes of fame to present their ideas, do the sponsor first and then
Yes.
go immediately
Yeah.
to the walkthrough and don't ask questions of legislative counsel that aren't appropriate to ask. You can't say, well, what
Why
was
did you
that
do
supposed to do?
Yeah.
What was that intended for? Because they can't give you the answer.
Are the sponsors there? It's to sort of talk about why they introduced them.
So S-164 is on the schedule. It's going to give at least the opportunity for health benefits for members of the General Assembly. We'll see where we go with that. If we want to dovetail Senator Volsky's bill into that, we can.
That might be interesting. It would be great if you guys would do it, but I think.
We can do it
Discussion
together.
of
That's fine.
benefits for, before we leave Tuesday though, if we have an extra hour, we could do, we could do the LCT updates.
Sure. All
I mean,
right.
it's something to consider from 3 or 4.
I'll pencil or pen that in.
What do you think?
Yeah. And if you want to get a hold of Josh Hanford, because he's the ramrod of that show,
And Sam, yeah.
and let him know that we would probably by 2:30-ish. Is it gonna take an hour and a half to interview two
No.
people?
It's not, so they should be on deck for 2:30. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, or even from 2.
Yeah, they might,
Let's shoot for 2:00. Okay, so then Wednesday, we just talked about Thursday. S-23 is coming back to us. As was obvious on the floor yesterday. And I think I did okay explaining why.
you did very well.
What we did was we ran out of time for them to message it back to us. That's the only thing that was hanging it up.
Yeah.
I did
Well,
talk to Rick
no one
Sagel
was-
this morning. They did make some changes to it.
Yeah.
So it may not be a simple matter of saying, oh yeah, that's right, and that's right, let's go. But anyway, he's gonna come in on Thursday at 2 to explain what the differences were. And Shay Waters Evans from the other body, who's in the House side, will be with him to tell us why they did what they did. And if we move to approve their amendments, then that bill will finally get passed and be done with. Then at the 3, we have the DPS coming in, Jennifer Morrison and Lisa Mylott, the animal welfare person, is coming in. And then on Friday, we have Senator Clarkson up first as sponsor of S-196.
And Ken Wood is the
Oh, good.
Ledge Council, so maybe we want to have it quickly.
Did you get that one, Ever? Cameron Wood is Ledge Council. So after both, because you'll notice on what you may not have a copy of this. Carol Hooker
Yay, Sharon.
is coming in. She's a former state senator and she was in concert with Senator Clarkson to bring this issue to the fore. So we'll have the two of them explain why they did what they want to do. And then we can have Cameron come in and walk us through the bill. And then I know you're all looking forward to this at 2:00, a security briefing in this room with Agatha Kessler, the Sergeant at Arms, and the Chief of Capitol Police and some of the Capitol Police law enforcement folks. And that's the deal. It does need to be filled out maybe a little bit, but I think as we move along next week, we can do that.
So I think it's good.
Okay, well, maybe we don't. You fill it out.
And Mr. Chair, I know that we have, the Voting Rights Acts bill that I mentioned is going around, and I'm hoping that we'll have it submitted by Tuesday, to submit it Tuesday, so it could be introduced as early as Wednesday.
Then we can take that up late in the week. Or
That's what I was thinking. Maybe we could do like a bill intro,
Okay.
another one, and just keep it open.
Yeah.
The other thing we could do is, even though there isn't a bill about it, is invite the Ethics Commission in for an update.
There is a bill. You should check your inbox from December 2nd because I sent it to you to take a look at.
Oh, my God.
It hasn't been introduced yet, but there is a bill.
And you're still looking for.
I am still looking.
Okay.
Oh, my God, I missed that. I apologize.
Okay, all good. And I believe
Timely
the
that I mentioned.
executive director of the Ethics Commission is on sabbatical this.
Oh.
But the general counsel, TJ Jones,
Oh, right, he's so good.
he's so good. And just as a little update to that, the Ethics Commission has actually asked the pro tem to have him come to the whole Senate and do a presentation.
Oh, okay.
He does a great
He
job.
does an excellent job. So we've asked for a full Senate presentation on sort of the ins and outs of ethics and for legislative function.
Sure.
So maybe next week, maybe the week after next, and we can chat
Okay.
about that when I make it to the correct meeting time for us to do schedule planning.
Which will be Wednesday at 12:30.
Yes, it's on my calendar.
Okay, anything else, committee?
Thank you for a great first week.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, John.
No, thank
You
you.
survived week one.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Okay,
And I
we'll adjourn for the day and the week and see all of you.